Hey, Shiva, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew.
How's everything going with your son? Is he home for a while?
Yep,
How long does he have to stay with you guys?
another 10 days.
Nice. You see big changes in him since you've seen him?
Oh, not much.
No?
Nope.
Okay. Hey, Tim, good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
Bud, how are you, man? Jeff, good to see you out there. Welcome, everybody. Right. All right, so we usually give it, 3 till 3 after the hour. Let people come on in here. So we'll kick things off shortly. Shiva's got some exciting things to tell everybody about. Hey, Dennis, good to see you out there. Justin, welcome, everybody. Chris Sears, did I miss your call by any chance? I was in a meeting. I saw something come through from Wisconsin.
Hey, no, it's not me.
Sure. I was all excited. I thought it was.
I can call you, but no, it wasn't me.
By the way, did you get my email on the event?
I did. Yeah, I got to talk to our CEO and see if I can get that all booked. But I'm not sure if I'd be able to make it for the early bird type thing, but the pre-day or whatever. But
Pre-day. Okay.
definitely want to make it for the 2 main days.
Good. All right, 3 after here. Shiva, you all set as I kick things off?
Yep, Andrew.
Fantastic. All right. Well, so welcome, everybody. We've got a good group turned out here and more coming in as we speak. For those that are new for the first time here, my name is Andrew Morgan, and I help Shiva and the CyberCNS team on their product go-to-market strategy. And as always, we've been doing the partner call for, gosh, I think almost a year and a half, all the way back to Alpha Code. A lot of you guys have been through the whole journey. So appreciate that. The way the format works is I'm going to hand the reins over to Shiva shortly. He's going to kind of review what's new, what's coming, what's being released. I think literally as we speak, the release is being pushed. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. I go off camera. I will be watching chat for questions and interrupting Shiva where appropriate. So with that, Shiva, let you take on over.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
So what we're going to do today is basically, you remember that a couple of weeks back, we essentially came in and said, we are doing the whole assessments piece, and we showed you a user interface and experience and the reports, etc. And then we basically got feedback from all of you, right? Which essentially, as we went through the feedback in terms of saying, we want more details, we want essentially all the backing up data. Third is that we want to be able to convert this into a company at any point of time. So as we basically took all of that information and put it together, we realized one thing, right? Which is we have all of these pieces basically in the current product, which is visible and which is made available in different formats, etc. And what we were trying to do is to basically create something which is limited and constraint for the assessment piece, while the requirement might actually be that we don't want to put those constraints. So what you're seeing today is basically kind of a rework on the thought process. So we basically went back to the drawing board completely. So on the agent side, nothing changes. It continues to be the same, where you basically download an agent, you basically you have all the local user interface where you can enter all the credential data, etc., run a scan, either basically say directly ship it to the cloud, or you can basically download the assessment. And in directly shipping it to the cloud, you made it easier so that you don't need to enter API keys, etc. So that part of it, we kept it as is. Now, this is the screen that you're used to. So what we've done is basically added a new view right here. So we have companies and then we have assessments, right? So when you click on the assessment view, what happens is that everything else remains the same. The only thing is that what you see here in the drop-down changes in terms of it changing from companies to becoming the assessments that you basically created. The button over here, upload assessment, will walk you through the wizard, which basically allows you to upload an assessment from an offline perspective. And the download assessment agent will basically give you the assessment agent, which you can download and use across multiple companies. Again, we made it very simple that you download the assessment agent once, and then just using command line parameters, you can essentially run these assessments again and again. And you don't need to worry about coming back to the portal to create keys or any of those pieces. So that's basically how we made it fairly simple for you to run assessments. Now, with this whole view that we basically created, what we've been able to do is, since we've kept the structure of the existing, the company structure plus the asset structure, all of that basically uniform, we've been able to kind of give you the access to all the reports that you earlier had in the company screen, also in the assessment. So that way, what happens is that if you want to essentially kind of walk your customer through an executive summary report or an executive summary, you can essentially kind of click on it and walk them through the executive summary report, and all of the data will be populated and everything basically is exactly as it is with the company. The thing also is that you can essentially go through all the assets basically that have been discovered, right? And basically look at all the data exactly in the way that you basically are used to in seeing it in a company. And as I said, you can essentially kind of create do whatever you require to do. The second thing that you can essentially do is basically, like when you're looking at it, we've added additional pieces of data, which basically applies to both. So if you look here, we basically, you already know the KBs and all of this data, but we also have the list of local users that are basically there on the local system, which is something that was there in V1, then it kind of got dropped off in V2, but basically we brought that back. Second is basically all the shares that are basically being exposed and accessed from the system. All of that is basically being brought together along with all of the other details that you're used to, include the remediation plan. So you have this complete view that is basically available. Again, you want to scan a firewall, you can basically come in here and add a firewall to scan. In addition, if you want to do an external scan externally versus basically doing it on the machine, that basically works. You have complete access to the remediation plans as you would do with this thing. And the most important, you have access to all the reports that basically were earlier available. All of those reports basically become available. And again, these use your standard company templates and company customizations that you're using. So whatever customizations you did basically works for this too. You want to basically show the customer a view of all the vulnerabilities by operating system. All of that continues to work. The Active Directory tab works exactly as it works over there. You can basically download all the data. You can look at all the data, all of those pieces. The same with network scan findings. And one of the things that we had missed last time, which you guys pointed out to us, is external scans. So you can essentially kind of do the external scans for the company and get the reports for the external scan endpoints, because that anyway has to be done from the cloud. And basically you can look at your jobs in terms of assessment uploads, etc., which basically come in here. What you don't get over here is the ability to run schedules, ability to run notifications and perform integrations, etc., which is expected in terms of an assessment. But apart from that, all the other features that you're used to basically are completely made available in this UI. And so it becomes easy for you to essentially play around with it. The second thing that we've basically also done is to basically kind of work on the report, one specific report, which basically I wanted to, the summary report, where we had a lot of feedback last time. So now we basically worked on it, actually made it, I hope, basically something which is better. We basically have the assessment report that is created. You can, it gives you the time, date, and time. Then basically a executive risk summary, which basically is something that we have in some of the other reports, but we brought it together here. Then details of what are the specific issues, like, for example, these are endpoints with remote access enabled, or they're missing advanced protection. So all of those details. And then we have these devices which have hard disk utilization, which is greater than 90%, and 5, which is basically over 75%. So all of that, and basically what is the risk associated with each of those pieces. Then we basically give you a complete risk dashboard. Then a vulnerability assessment talking about all the critical vulnerabilities, high, what is the this thing, what are the top 5, and then your basically score in terms of how many you need to, what does critical mean, apply patches in 30 days. Then the endpoint assessment, which shows you like the scorecard. So this is the company scorecard, and basically the like what basically has to be done with this. So what are the assets, what are the things, how many have insecure listening ports, all those details. Then a compliance report card from NDLM V1, LMNR, all of those details out here. Then a compliance assessment, which basically shows you across like CIS, PCI DSS, what is the compliance and non-compliance, all of that. So we want to get breakdowns for this, but that is part of some of the enhancements that we're doing now in terms of we are basically adding the Australian standard, the standard for Great Britain, and we are also basically taking CIS and basically we are basically breaking it into the groups, the IG groups, and then providing breakdowns by those. So those basically are being worked on. So once those basically come into play, then this will also get enhanced to basically provide that data. And then patch assessment, what are the patches that are, how many assets scanned, how many are basically patches are missing. And then basically what are the top 5 missing patches. And then what is the asset breakdown by different operating system, and it basically shows a breakdown. And it also gives you like how many assets are servers, desktops, how many are Active Directory controllers, what are printers, how many are hypervisors, network devices, and all the other details. Device encryption status, devices by disk space utilization. And then we're just adding a section on trying to figure out if there is backup and disaster recovery present there. So we're going to bring that data back into the system. That's basically, right now we basically kind of commented it, but basically that's something that we're going to, we've just figured out how to add those backup systems. So it's using the same technology as application baseline to figure out standard backup systems that are installed and getting their names and figuring out if it's installed or not. So this is basically kind of the summary report of a location. And when we basically looked at this summary report, this will also now be made available with companies too, so that if you want to use any of these portions in a QBR, you can continue to use these in a QBR. So that part of it is basically getting done. So, and as I said, so if you look up here, you can essentially see the upload. You can essentially see all the details out here. And then when you go to overview, you have the assessment agent. You can download the assessment agent, get started, and basically all these features basically will be available. And at any point of time, you can promote this into a company, and it'll have all these details basically populated. So it's a seamless migration between a company and basically an assessment. So this is something that we've been working for the past couple of weeks to make sure that all of this data is in there. The second thing that we've been working on, as I promised earlier, is that the assessment agent that we built is like a lean, mean, fast agent. So just to give you what my test engineer gave me as exact statistics, one of our networks, which used to take 47 to 48 minutes to scan, is now taking anywhere between 9 to 11 minutes to scan. Okay, so we've made a huge amount of improvement in terms of CPU utilization, as well as basically the speed at which basically the scanner runs. And that essentially is going to be reflected in the upgrade of the agents that we're going to push out during the course of next week, which will essentially make all your existing agents also run faster, meaner, and leaner. So overall, this is essentially what we've done. And what I want to do right now is to basically get feedback in terms of whether you like how it is right now, and should we just basically start pushing this out, rolling it out, and are we missing anything? Because we took the feedback we got last time, and then we made all these changes.
So Shiva, that looks awesome. Hey, Shiva, can you just go to the beginning real quick? Alex asks about the assessment agent one-time scan. So can you just start over, like if you were looking at the main system, can you just, do you mind going to the assessment view or getting to that?
No, but so how do you get to the this assessment view?
Yeah, so if you're in the main, the difference between the core system and the assessment, just start there.
Yeah, so basically, okay, so assume that I'm just going to basically, I'm logging in afresh, okay?
Right.
When I enter into system, by default, basically I come into
Mm-hmm.
the company, right? So
Right.
I have basically, so I have a company right here, right? So I have company, I have all the details, I have all the menus, application baselines, all this I can set up. Now on top, you have the second view, the second button, which is basically an assessment view. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that we've basically given you this button separately as an assessment view is because something that we learned from Dennis early on, right? Which is there might be a requirement that we need to give the assessment view to people in sales, right? And you don't want them to look at what's happening inside of companies. So the assessment view, you can basically individually give the assessment view only to salespeople, and they can run assessments and basically look at all the data. Whereas the company view is basically more for the IT person inside the MSP, where they can essentially look at it as a continuous monitoring piece.
Very cool. Okay, so here's some questions coming in. So Alexander asks, is the assessment agent for one-time scan specifically?
Right now, it is basically for one-time scan specifically. That is, but if you run it multiple times, it will run multiple times and send it back to the same company. But it is basically meant for a one-time scan. But the same agent is going to basically be used for the other agents going forward. But we are not basically upgrading those agents at this point of time when we are releasing it now.
Got it. Craig asks, the report, Shiva, that you showed, what's the name of that report?
That is basically an assessment report.
And it's in the core list. It will be in the core list.
It's in the standard reports. Yeah, it will be in.
Okay. Comment until we had. Dennis looks really good. When's it available for testing?
It will be available tomorrow morning in your hands. We are pushing out the. It's basically scheduled push out that's going on. So by tomorrow morning, everybody should have it in their hands. Today for some people, but tomorrow definitely for everybody.
Okay. Steve, can you only add a company in the main view and then go to assessments to complete the assessment?
No, you don't need to add a company. You don't need to do anything. You can essentially download the agent and define whom you're doing the assessment for at the time of running the assessment, and all of that will get imported in here. You don't need to come to the portal at all.
Got it. Shiva, just curious, and if you said this, let me apologize. So you're scanning a network, right? Can you talk about work from home? Would they, like, if the company's like, yeah, but we have 20 out of the 50 computers, there's 25. Is it like deploy lightweight agents through an RMM? Is it what is a best practice there to make sure you get everything?
Yeah, so the same lightweight agents are available even on the assessment agent. So you can actually download the lightweight agent from the from the client where basically you're running the assessment agent, right? So it has embedded within it the lightweight agent. So you can download the lightweight agent and run it on any other machine, and it will basically send the data back here.
Oh, wow. So you download the assessment agent and they say, okay, yeah, we're comfortable hypothetically pushing it through group policy to the lightweight agent to all our computers.
Yep.
Okay. It's in that folder. You'll see the lightweight agent.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So back to Alexander. So the standard company view is for continuous vulnerability management, and the assessment view is for ad hoc scans, pre-sales, etc. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Dennis asks, any update on the ability to audit user access to actually CyberCNS? I think so. Dennis, you're saying who's accessing CyberCNS itself?
So the audit logs have been added, Andrew. We are just waiting for a UI to be put in place. Probably will basically take place in the next 2 to 3 days.
Okay. So Alexander, I understand. Know the purpose of the new feature. I like it versus the old. Okay, good. Paul, when looking at active assets, at the active assets view, it would be great to sort by name and then be able to filter by device type, not scan status, etc.
Okay. So when we basically do a sort here, you can basically choose what you want to sort by, right? So if we add device type over here, would that be good for you?
And Shiva, could you just go to the old, by snooze activate? Could you do the old legacy view? Would that help?
Yep.
You want to just show Paul that and see if he likes that?
Yeah, I get that. Sorry for jumping in.
No, it's fine.
I'm thinking from a sales perspective, and going through there, and as the tool either fails to interrogate an IP address and doesn't know what it is, and so forth, and to be able to go through the narrative with the customer of here's everything that the thing found, and somebody says, all right, let's focus in on our Windows devices. Let's focus in on infrastructure devices. Let's look at our VoIP system. And so either sorting by name, is one aspect, but then filtering. So, all right, let's get rid of everything else. And, here are your VoIP stuff. And, that would be, one of the big struggles we have is the Internet of Things that just gets plugged into the network. And while it exists a vulnerability, it may not be from an MSP's perspective, the ability to have complete control over. And a big part of this narrative is identifying to the non-technical customer these other things besides the Windows devices and the switches and things that are really within our purview to control and to mitigate risk with, and to focus in on those other things. So I think one of the good selling points of this assessment tool is to be able to identify everything that we're not doing, that's not within our responsibility, but yet is plugged into the network. And that's really one of the messages we try to get out to our existing customers, as well as, to some other customers says, oh, I got my Windows, everything's great. But hey, do you realize everything else that's on the network, and just have a really clean way to look at that and report on that.
Understood, Paul. So what we'll do is that we'll basically classify these devices by device types and also make it like visible as an icon here, and something that you can basically filter out on.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Good feedback, Paul. All right. So Andrew says, looking good. Agree, looks good. Do you have the ability to put credentials and such into the agent so we can pull as much data as possible? Also, based on the last meeting, I was under the impression we could load into put this on a Raspberry Pi or something similar to drop on a prospect's network and run remotely, run the scans. Is that possible use case? Go ahead, Shiva.
Yes. So when you download the assessment agent and you basically run it on a Raspberry Pi, it presents you with the web-based UI, and then you just enter the credentials into that UI, and then you're good to go. So after it scans everything, it asks you for whether you want to upload it to the server, or you want to basically kind of download it as an offline zip file, which basically you can then come here and upload the assessment to. So that's the only difference. It just is. So apart from that, everything else basically happens at the agent level, where you provide the credentials and all of those pieces. And one of the things that you folks had asked is that the credentials basically should be stored back in here. And we are actually going, we're going to ask you, we are asking you whether you want to store the credentials back in here. And then if you say yes, then we'll push the credentials here. If you say no, then we just don't push the credentials into this assessment view. So the ease of credentials is once the customer has entered the credentials, he looks good, everything is happy. And if you're converting him into a company, then you need more intervention from the customer.
Got it. So Shiva, the obviously the intention too is easy to be, hey, turn the laptop or whatever to the customer and say, hey, put in your credentials. Yep. So they could do that. Yeah, Benjamin, this probably 75% of our customers are you were using Network Detective. So yes, so direct. So if you think about CyberCNS, the really cool thing about it is now that Shiva is releasing this, so you have what like a Network Detective would do from a pre-sales and or one-time assessment capability, which Rapid Fire charges $500 a month for. Then they have their VulScan tool, which is what our core system does. We do continuous vulnerability management. That's another $500. And then their CyberHawk, where you also have to buy their, their hardware and all that fun stuff. It's another $500 a month. So we do all those things in one tool. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. So Howard, once the lightweight agents are already on laptops, will they get updated automatically as well? Or are we going to look to uninstall, reinstall the agents on the laptops out in the wild?
Everything is basically going to be updated automatically, plus including the assessment agent. If you tomorrow add a feature in the assessment agent, the next time you run the assessment agent, it will pull the updates and basically give you the new assessment agent.
Got it. Is the assessment pricing using the IP count of the subscription or what pricing model? It would just be our standard number of the agents. Or what am I trying to say? You have a 2,500 or a 5,000. It's going against that.
Correct, and it's basically more about what you scan in a particular month. So if you scan a certain set of assets in a month, then that's what it counts against right now. Unless if anybody has any different ideas of how it should be priced, we're open to that too.
Okay. Brody, will there be a way to convert an assessment client over to a company once the deal is closed?
Yes. So we're testing this thing, but here, when you basically come to this overview, you'll just get one thing which says convert to company, and that's it.
Oh, there's going to be another thing next to assessment agent.
Yes, it'll say convert to company. Yeah.
Okay. Will that come out tonight in the release?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. As a follow-up to that, can we leave the same agent on the Raspberry Pi and just move it around between prospects? Or we need to load a new agent for each prospect? In other words, is it ID based?
No, it is basically every time an assessment is completed, you basically can reset it and you can start afresh. So there is no need to download the agent. There is no need to update the agent. Nothing is required.
Got it. Steve, it's not the K word. All right, Alexander, I might have missed something on the assessment agent. Once it ran, does the data land into the CyberCNS console, or is it required for us to upload the findings into the console? Just looking for clarification.
You're presented with two options. One is, do you want to do a direct upload? And the second is you want to do an offline upload. So it's your choice.
Okay. Justin, good to see you. Will the documentation be updated with this change? Meaning
Yes.
this update.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Caught up at bottom of the hour. What else? Do you have any other thoughts and stuff going on before we just open it up to have people jump on and ask other questions?
No, I think that's basically what we've been working for the past couple of weeks, because as I said, again, this whole thing is basically what everybody had given us feedback on, saying that, yeah, we like what we see, but these are the pieces which are missing. So when we looked back into it and then looked at how to solve the problem, we basically came up with this. So I would just like to say a big thank you to everyone.
Yeah, no, are you kidding? Looks awesome. Great job, Shiva and team. Chris Sears, any update on being able to toggle on the suppression of a newly detected vulnerability for 30 days or whatever you deem?
Chris, I know that's been long pending. We just basically were busy with this. So as part of tomorrow's patch, I will ensure that that gets out.
Okay, sorry for yawning. Tim, new report looks amazing. Can we still modify it and move sections?
Yes.
Okay, you're always so argumentative, Shiva. Benjamin. So we wrote a script to automate to deploy CyberCNS. Do you guys have a script that we would have a script that you would use or would copy? Oh, so there's Tim, can you come on and talk to Benjamin here? Like, it'd be interesting to see what's in your GitHub. Ben, sorry, we have a GitHub with a bunch of scripts in it. Thank you for that, by the way. But Tim has created a GitHub.
I missed the question. Must have been direct. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, so Benjamin says they wrote a script to deploy CyberCNS via Automate. Would we like a copy? And maybe kind of share a little bit about what you've done, Tim, and thank you for that, Benjamin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got a GitHub that's got the scripts that I wrote. I'll share that in chat, the URL for it.
Yeah, maybe compare them, Benjamin, see what you think there, and that'd be great. Appreciate you sharing that. Okay, Alexander, quick question on the CyberCNS SaaS platform. Are there any published certifications that we can provide to our most concerned clients, SOC 2s? Should we want to give an update on SOC 2, where we are in that whole process?
Yeah, SOC 2, basically, we had put them on pause for a couple of weeks because of like the team was very busy. So we're restarting with them on December 15th. And they've said basically in the mid of Jan, basically they can give us the SOC 2 report. So there should not be a problem. But anybody who wants the intermediate SOC 2 report with saying what all they are evaluating on us, that format is available, and anybody who needs it can ask Sri and he'll make it available from the auditor.
Very cool. Larry, would like to suggest removal of V1 documentation. It's confusing for new users. V1 documentation links come up. Yeah, really good point. Shiva, I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but like you could be in V2 documentation and you do a keyword search, and whether it's, again, I'm not sure how or why, but in Confluence, sometimes you'll pull a V1 view and a V1 reference in V2.
Okay, what I'll do is that I'll basically remove the V1 documentation, because I think most people have moved over, and those who have not moved over hopefully know the product well enough, but we'll just make sure that we remove the V1 documentation, and then
Yeah, that'd be really good. Okay, so Dennis, looks like the move to Azure has been pushed back since the IP addresses have not changed. Is that still planned?
Yes, it's still planned. As I said, Dennis, we were busy with this particular feature, but we have all the other pieces working. So December 18th to 20th is when basically we're doing the migration over to the new infrastructure.
Okay. Ben's making it. Tim looks like we were on the same page. Okay. Okay. We're back up to let's see. So Paul, you want to just come out, and because you have 4 questions there, probably easier for you to kind of go off of each one. It looks like things people would want to know anyway. So it'd be great if you could lead the conversation.
Yeah, thanks. Just general questions about the product. One is either their way to do it or the, put on the roadmap the ability to force MFA for all the portal users. That would be something great. I don't think that exists now. In fact, I'm a little confused. I know one of my guys set up with MFA, but when I activated my account, it was the first one. I'm not entirely sure how to turn on MFA for my specific account within the portal. Like user management, just like resetting somebody's password or something. It seems it's a lot more self-service than a typical admin might go in and reset an account or disable account or things like that, or demand MFA for an account. So, some things along that lines be great to understand. Or if you want to respond after I give you each one.
Yeah, so the default policy that we've set up is basically that everybody needs to have MFA. If basically it is not enforcing MFA unless you're basically integrated with say Office 365 or anything, that's the only case where we basically say don't enforce MFA, because we expect that the OAuth provider you're using is basically enforcing an MFA, so forcing you to do it over here is not required. If that is not the case, so what we will do is 2 steps, Paul. One is essentially I'll make sure that every user basically is listed on the portal and basically their MFA status is visible to you. And second, the ability to basically force a reset of the MFA from the users tab basically will be added. So I'll get this added by next week. So we'll have an update in the next meeting for this.
Okay, excited to see, and I think it's the third-party patching is what you were first going to address, but the kind of teaser tab that's on there, I think it's under the jobs section where the patch tab, just roadmap around that. When does that actually get some teeth and activated? And it sounds like, I think from previous discussions, it was going to be focused on third-party patching or remediation, and just kind of your thoughts around there and where the product's going there.
So we right now have 8 partners where basically this is working, and we're basically testing the waters with those 8 partners in terms of getting their feedback in terms of saying, is it all working well, any problems, etc. And again, they're doing it on some test systems and some dummy companies, etc. So till now, we've not heard anything bad back. So we are hoping that, and because of basically everybody coming back from Thanksgiving, etc., we've not been able to probe them further. So my hope is that in the next week, I'll basically get some solid feedback. And if that feedback is good, then we will be releasing it in the week of December 20th, along with the migration that we're doing. So we'll release this at one go.
Great, excited about that. It's interesting where that product, where you're taking the product that way and really, starting to blur the lines, I think, in a good way between a vulnerability scanning system and a vulnerability management remediation, which starts to, hit the toes of the RMM capabilities to some extent. So congratulations, really excited to see what fruits of your labor there. 3, in the executive summary report, the heat map that's, I call it a heat map, but the little temperature gauge it's really close to the top of it. It gives an overall basically company grade and kind of a, so forth for the vulnerability assessment. From us as a provider, a better understanding of the drivers of that grade and what are the big impacts of it, the weighting of the various vulnerabilities or how you come up with that score. Is that something that's already available to us, or is that kind of secret sauce that may change from time to time that we don't have great visibility into?
No, there's no secret sauce. It's basically a standard this thing. So what we'll do is that we'll basically also add a section which says what is the scoring rubric. and basically what are the parameters which are there and what is the score against each one of the parameters, along with the description of why you scored so much on those parameters.
Wonderful, great. And then we're a heavy user of Bright Gauge, just not pushing you guys, just wondering where that integration may fall on the roadmap.
Bright Gauge integration, unfortunately, is not something that we can drive. One of the things that we had asked this group, one of the things we can do if you want a Bright Gauge integration is we can start pushing data into ConnectWise Manage, which Bright Gauge will pick up, and then you can essentially start integrating with that. If that is basically something that you think we should do, we are happy to do that.
Selfishly, we would love that. As I said, we're a heavy user of Bright Gauge, but we're one of many voices. So appreciate that thought process. And as Andrew said, it's unfortunate you're not very agreeable with things. Seems like everything answers yes. We really appreciate that. It's great work. Thanks.
Yeah, awesome show. Thanks for all that, Paul. You for somebody that's come on early or actually recently, really appreciate all of your engagement. You're making the company better. So thank you for all of it. Okay, Jeremy, why don't you come on? You got a bunch of stuff here, so it'd probably be easier if you could come on with us. I thought you weren't going to be able to make it.
I'm good at this one.
You got the
My
flu?
question really is, nah, I little under the weather, but not too bad. Hopefully
Sorry
it's not
to
COVID.
Yeah, let's hope not.
My question is really is around assets and IP and when they get moved around and so forth. I had a device that I thought was when it wasn't on the network, it doesn't have a lightweight agent on it. So if it wasn't on the network, to me, it looked like it was getting deleted out of the system. I saw in the logs where it was actually getting, in certain cases, some devices get deleted and then recreated like almost immediately, which I hadn't had a chance to actually tag the device and test this, but I wanted to make sure, one, when a device gets deleted and re-added, because I'm assuming IP changes because they're dynamic or something like that it's maintaining like tags we might assign to it and stuff like that. And second, I think maybe it's actually a deeper problem, or not necessarily a problem, but deeper thing. What I found was the one that I was seeing deleted and not getting re-added was actually on site at a customer's. So that whole device sort of picked up and moved from my environment to my customer's environment and showed up in their IP. So it was no longer in my environment. So I could no longer track until they returned, whatever the vulnerability systems were, or the vulnerabilities for that system were. So it seems like it shouldn't necessarily get deleted or moved unless we sort of say get rid of this device or something. I'm not quite sure how to approach it, but it seems like it shouldn't move around between environments, our environment and customer environment, and it should always stay there until I say that asset's sort of retired.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is basically kind of something that I think we missed, honestly, because when we do this, we basically so the whole concept is that we had a lot of issues initially in terms of determining whether a particular device was the same device or a different device, because one of the things is that some of the things that you get is like MAC address and other pieces, which essentially does not work across a router boundary, right? So at that point of time, you don't know whether this particular asset has changed IP. Is it the same asset or not an asset? So that's where we basically started creating something which is basically based on a signature, creating that this signature maps to this particular device, and basically creating a device ID for that particular piece. Now, the problem that's happening, I think, is because the device ID is basically unique across the entire your instance. So we are not basically putting a constraint of the company in there. So what I will do is that I'll put the constraint of company, in which case it will basically be forced to recreate that particular device again with that same unique ID with your customer's instance, and what will show up is an offline instance in your company. So we'll make that change.
Perfect. And then the last question I had is that at what point does it decide to remove it or re-add it and maybe it's just because of this instance is why it actually got re-added, but do those tags stay consistent then? So
Yes.
it doesn't actually get deleted, it just sort of gets reassigned an IP or something like that?
Yeah, it gets reassigned. And in fact, that's one of the major things that we have fixed with the new agent that we are releasing. So once you have the new agent, you will never see a delete and add. You will only see updates to it. And because it's all of the assets are now being driven by the agent itself. So earlier, what used to happen is we used to send all the data to, and this is one of the major changes that we made. Earlier, we used to collect all the data, send the data to the server. Server used to compute what's different and what's not different, and then basically make the update. What's changed now is that the agent is now basically the intelligence is moved to the agent, where it basically keeps encrypted copy of the previous data, compares it with the current data, and sends over specifically what has changed on that particular asset, rather than sending the whole asset data once again. So in fact, it's more bandwidth efficient at this point of time. So which is basically one of the reasons for why we are reducing the amount of data and calls that are going back to the server.
Okay, perfect. And one other thing that I'd like to suggest maybe looking into deeper too is, one of the CIS controls is using DHCP log scanning to identify devices. And that's like something that I don't have any tool to do, and I think would fit well into your agent's capability maybe. So I'd like to maybe see some investigation on that if you guys have the inkling to look at that, to identify maybe on a Windows server and then maybe firewalls at some point. But to be able to look at DHCP logs for device identification and at least show up on the network as an unscanned asset, potentially, or something like that if it can't reach it.
Yeah, absolutely. Vaishali, can you just please note this down and create a ticket so that we can follow up and close this, please?
Sure, sir.
Thank you.
So Alexander, on the LineGuard API integration, we already have finished LineGuard API integration. In fact, we got the instance from, I think, Mark. So we already have finished the API integration. We just are going to release it probably not this week, but early next week we'll be releasing it.
Awesome. Vaishali, Ali is having some issues on his Azure AD. Ali, is there an existing ticket in for that Vaishali can search and set something up with you?
Yes, I know the existing ticket is already there.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Ali. So we'll have them reach out to you and get going on that. Andrew Taylor. So it's kind of like a statement. Is there anything like a question in that, or am I missing it, Andrew? Can you talk, or do you have a microphone? Andrew Taylor.
He's asking if we can do SAML SSO with any provider, not just the 3 that are listed. Oh, sorry.
You there?
Can you guys hear me? Sorry about that. I was distracted.
Yeah, no,
I think I tried to set it up. It looks like it's maybe possible, but yeah, ideally, maybe basically doing the industry standard SAML SSO with whatever your identity provider might be. We use Microsoft, of course, but there's others as well. So we can essentially make it easier for us to manage our own users that get access into CyberCNS.
Yeah,
And
so
the
the
other
underlying
question-
infrastructure basically has the capability to integrate with any SSO. It's just that we made those 3 because those were the initial ones that were asked, but we can basically just give a generic OAuth provider, and if you provide all the details, we can essentially kind of create that integration, not a problem.
Okay, yeah, I think I've got a ticket in for that one because I tried to set it up and wasn't having much luck. I'll just make sure I follow up on that and we'll go from there. And then the other question I had is, it seems like we have to provide domain administrator credentials to get vulnerability results for domain joined PCs into CyberCNS. And my question was just if there's any roadmap item, or maybe there's a way that I'm missing to give it the least amount of privilege necessary to get the data it needs.
No, we have already documented a mechanism by which you can create a service account with the minimum privileges, with just read-only access to a whole bunch of data. So we don't need domain administrator privileges. We just need read-only access because we don't write anything to your system.
Okay. Yeah, I had an open ticket with that too, but it seems like maybe there was just some miscommunication there. So if someone could point me to that documentation, that'd be great.
Yep. I'll
Yeah.
make sure that
Thank
you
you.
get that documentation.
Yeah, can you
Well-
throw that in for Shali for Angie?
Yep, sure. I'll get back to Andrew on this.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you
Credential
very much.
requirement, will that credential requirement change as patch jobs become released in the wild? Will you need those privileged admin levels to perform those patches?
We'll need additional privileges, but we may not need domain administrators.
Tim, you want to just come on and ask what you're asking about OS query, like on like agents?
Yeah, I mean, that was with regard to identifying agents whenever we're scanning across a different subnet. It was just a suggestion that maybe we can pull MAC addresses by looking at the lightweight agents that are on clients that might be on the same segment to help augment that.
Yep.
Okay. Mark, honestly, I don't remember. If you want to ask the question again, that's fine. Go ahead. There's a chance this was answered, Shivak. I've been heads down. Mark sent me a personal email. I haven't even had a second to check. So Mark, go ahead and ask.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
So we've had a few people or some confusion over the pausing of the Microsoft updates in the reporting so that, when Patch Tuesday comes out, if we run a report on the Thursday after that, everything looks horrible because, there's so many vulnerabilities because of the recently released patch. And one of the things we've been waiting for is the ability to snooze, the new Microsoft patches for, call it 2 weeks, some amount of time after they're released before they start showing up as actual vulnerabilities on the thing. And, I know we can go in and individually snooze, updates, but, Microsoft releases 70 of them, and having to go in every second Tuesday and find all 70 patches to snooze them isn't really feasible. So we were looking for a way to, have the system just automatically detect a new Microsoft patch and automatically put it on a snooze for 2 weeks or whatever set of time.
So Mark, this is basically one of the things that Chris Sears had raised, and we basically have gotten it into the code, but we were not able to push it because of various other constraints. But it is basically coming out as part of this week's patch, where you will be able to define as a global setting and as a company setting how many days you want to snooze patches for. And then for that number of days, both from a reporting perspective as well as basically from the UI, you will essentially not see those. But you will basically, we have put another tab where we're basically saying that snoozed vulnerabilities, and there you can go and see all the things that we've snoozed for you.
Perfect. Yeah, that we've been anxiously awaiting that one. So
I'm extremely sorry, Mark, but it was just that we couldn't get it into the same branch, and we finally have managed to do it. I'm sorry.
okay, no big deal. We just wanted to get a status update.
Okay. Henry, good to see you. Want to jump on?
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We got you. Loud and clear, man.
So we've started deploying the probes on Ubuntu, and we just haven't really figured out exactly what what's breaking, but we're just not getting a lot of data back from the Active Directory scanning job. They're saying they're failing. And ironically, it's happening like when I'm scanning my own network. So I just, is there any way we could dial up the logging, or maybe make the, is there we can have like a verbose output on the probe command or something, or what can we do to partner with you to try to figure out how and why some of these scan jobs are not succeeding or where they're breaking. And kind of similar thread, when we're doing one-time scans for clients or prospects, I mean, because they can take a while, no fault of your software, just sometimes a one-time scan, I mean, you don't know how slow their computers are or whatever, or how big their network is. It would be cool if we could see kind of like what it's doing at the moment and give us the ability to kind of know, is it okay if I just cancel this PowerShell script and walk away with the data that I've got thus far? One of the things that the rapid fire tools give us the benefit of, because they're so GUI based, when we're doing the prospecting scans, is that you can kind of see where it's at. And over the years of using it, I've kind of learned, okay, well, it's got all the computer stuff and it's just stuck sitting here querying for SQL databases or whatever. And I don't care about that. So I'm just going to close the scan and get out of the prospect's hair and go back to my office, and I'll know that the scan got everything that I really care about. Does that make sense?
Yes, Henry. So that you will be able to do with the new release that we put for assessment scans, right? So that is again GUI based, and you can see the progress right over there, and then you can basically stop the scan halfway through and then take it back with you. So that part of it will get addressed with this. But with your Active Directory scans failing from a few probes, Vrishali, can you please send Henry the way we can run it in debug mode, and so we can see the entire logs. So that way we'll basically get a clear idea of what errors Henry is facing, and we can basically also get onto a call with you and help you sort this out, Henry.
Sure, sir.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
So, Chris, the snooze is based on the date when the Microsoft releases the patch.
Okay, good stuff. Tim, you want to give your opinion real quick here so everybody can hear it?
Sure. I mean, basically, I like this news to start with, but I'd really like to see, I think we talked about this several months back, would be a patch policy that depends on the severity of the vulnerabilities. And, for each type of severity, we'd set, what we think the amount of days that we can go without the patches. And then you tweak the reporting based on that. So if it's say we have 30 days to patch a low severity, we kind of hide that in the UI and, alert and start adding those to reports whenever, that 30 days gets near or gets surpassed. And then, up from there based on vulnerability. I think that might fall more into line with, being able to properly schedule out remediations.
Understood, Tim. So basically classifying the remediations in terms of should they be done immediately within the next 2 weeks, 30 days, 60 days, and then providing basically kind of a grouping to it so that people can operate on those groups, right?
Right. And then you don't necessarily have to hide every missing patch from all of the UI. We just want to bring the ones that are in danger of not following the policy up to light first.
Understood.
All right. Okay. Tim, just curious, because you're mentioning policy, do you, perfect world envision like being able to export like a somewhat of a written, like even that, not that it has to be voluminous, but some type of written document out of how you're doing your patch policy from CyberCNS to go against your controls?
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
am
I think
over?
that's probably the, I mean, if we're thinking about what's going to happen when we sit down with a client and discuss what we've been doing with their vulnerabilities, right? So vulnerabilities happen. So if we send alerts that say they've got if we send reports to a client saying, hey, you had vulnerabilities, all that's doing is scaring them, because there's nothing we can do about the fact that vulnerabilities happen. What
Right.
they're interested in is how we handle those vulnerabilities. What do we do? So do we have a policy for what do we do with them? And are we following that policy? And so if we can have reports that say, hey, all severity 1 vulnerabilities were addressed within the time frame that we agreed was acceptable, then we're showing that we've done what we need to do. And so I think the reports at the end, you know, what we really want to have in our executive reports is show those activities. It's not the state that they're interested in, it's the activities. And that's what auditors are interested in is how are we approaching these problems, and are we approaching them in a way that is, you know, doing things in a timely manner and within the policies that we set.
Right. All right. Okay. All right. This has a nice table, breaks down the different severity levels. You see that, Shiva, what Chris is saying?
We look at that.
Okay. All right. I know we're a few minutes over. Shiva and team, fantastic work. Continue to really, you know, I'm ecstatic about what you guys are doing. Thanks everybody for your continued support and contributions to that. So yeah, Steve, if you could save it for next time, that'd be awesome. So I know we're a few minutes over. Wish everybody a fantastic day. Keep an eye out for the update this tonight / tomorrow morning your time. Shiva, anything in closing?
Nope. Just thanks everyone. Have a great day.
All right, everybody, take care.